This video is brought to you by PrizePicks. I try to be as fair as possible on this show about everybody on the Cleveland Browns. And that includes, obviously, Todd Monken. And there have been some things that Todd has done that I have praised, a lot of things he's done that I've praised. There have been some things that I have been critical of, right? It's important to remember, just because you're critical or you praise somebody one time for something doesn't mean that, like, they can do no wrong or they can only do wrong, right? It's just a point of praise. It's just a point of criticism. Now, there is this new point of criticism that people are trying to put on Todd that I think is unfair, right? And it's about the handling of this quarterback competition. I really don't like the criticism going around about this because I don't think it's really fair to Todd Monken, because this quarterback competition was always going to be a media spectacle, no matter how it was handled, because what makes it a media spectacle is not any decision that Todd Monken is in control of. What makes this quarterback competition a media spectacle is the people involved in it. It's Deshaun Watson. It's Shedeur Sanders. That's what made this a spectacle. So criticism of this being a spectacle and it being put on Todd, I think it's unfair because Todd did not ask for this quarterback competition. He simply inherited this quarterback competition. But I don't want to just argue with the straw man about this. I want to see what people are out there nationally who are criticizing him about this are saying and maybe offer some counterpoints to that. So the Unsportsmanlike podcast with Chris Canty, they talked about this, were critical of Todd Monken's handling of this quarterback competition. Before we jump into the video, I want to talk about my sponsor, PrizePicks. PrizePicks is America's #1 sports app. The app is really easy to use for player picks. Just pick more or less for a few player stats and lock in your lineup. That's it. Rather just pick teams, well, PrizePicks has that now too. Just pick the winner, spread, or total in any game or fight. PrizePicks is available in most states, including California, Texas, and Florida. Plus, you can even follow me on the app at Quinn_C and tell my picks with one click and follow your friends too. Speaking of my picks, here they are. Myles Garrett over 15.75 sacks. 16's been his baseline the last few years. I'd be very surprised if he goes to LA and that number drops, given that he's going to see more passing attempts, given that LA's offense is better than what the Browns have been. Quincy Judkins, 924 yards. They had two really good picks for Quincy here, 6 touchdowns or 924 yards. I feel comfortable taking more on both, but 1,000 yards feels like a safer bet for Quincy. I think he's going to have a big year this year. Carson Schlesinger, 2.25 sacks. I'm saying more. Remember, Mike Rutenberg likes to blitz his linebackers a lot more than the previous defensive coordinator the Cleveland Browns had. Also, Carson Schlesinger is probably going to have to get involved as a sack producer to make up for the hole that they're going to have to make up for Myles Garrett. And then Shedeur Sanders starting more than 7.5 games. I think he'll be the starter, play about 8 games or more this year, but that's my picks for this season. Best of all, play your first $5 and get $150 in lineups if you win. Just use the promo code HMA when you sign up. Again, that's your first $5 and get $150 in lineups if you win when you use the promo code HMA. PrizePicks has switched up their offer. There's no better time to join, lock in, and win that first lineup. Let's hear what they had to say.
Who the heck cares who's starting the first preseason game? To Canty's point, this means absolutely nothing. I mean, I guess the only reason that maybe potentially this could be a story is if you think Shedeur needs more development. He's 6 years younger than Watson. Do you feel like then that they should be putting all their stock in Shedeur and starting him every preseason game? Otherwise, I do not understand. And I'm not one who has a big problem with Monken taking a look at both of his quarterbacks. I know a lot of people think it's ridiculous that he's even given Deshaun Watson a shot. If I'm him, heck, he's there on the roster. Why not evaluate all of your options? He's certainly an option, at least for now. It doesn't even matter that you're paying him a boatload of money, but that's the reality of the situation. And so he's taking a look-see. And part of taking a look-see is you let these dudes play in the preseason.
Amber, here's my problem.
Okay, so Amber mostly agree with what she said there. I will say this, like, the idea of anything that Todd has done with this quarterback competition being controversial is just, like, insane to me. He's done nothing abnormal. And, like, the people, I think, who have watched quarterback competition after quarterback competition in Cleveland and are acting like this one's being handled weird, it's strange to me because, like, we know what a weirdly handled quarterback situation looks like, right? We know when a coach is putting his thumb on the scales for one. This has been the least coach putting his thumbprint on the scales of a quarterback competition that I've seen, right? It honestly looks like Todd is just letting this thing play out, which is what everybody said that they wanted from this competition, right? It's so funny how fair competition works, right? Everybody argues for fair competition until the person that they want to win doesn't look like they're going to win that competition for one reason or the other. And then all of a sudden, they're starting to argue about how you could have made this competition easier for their party to win. That's usually how this goes. Not just with quarterback competitions, but when people start arguing about fairness or something like that, it's usually like fair. I want my team to have a better chance to win, or my guy to have a better chance to win. But yeah, like, really think about what they're discussing here on a national show on ESPN. They're discussing the fact that Todd Monken is letting both of his quarterbacks start in the preseason. Like, really? Really? We got a hot take on this? Let's hear Chris Canty's hot take on this.
With it, though, in terms of how Todd Monken is handling it. He told us back in the spring that he wanted to have QB1 wrapped up by the time minicamp was over. His words, not ours. So
that's not what he said. That's not what he said. Chris Canty, who we know does not listen because we talk about him constantly on this show. That's not what Todd said. Todd said he would like to have QB1 wrapped up by the end of the spring. But obviously, it's probably going to go further than that. Or that if it has to go longer than that, it has to go longer than that. Right? He did not say, I will announce a starter by the end of the spring, like Chris Canty is trying to make it out to be. He said, I would like to have this announced by the spring. The same way that people would like to have a bunch of things. I would like to win the lottery and retire tomorrow. Probably not going to happen, so I'm just going to come to work anyways, right? That's what Todd was saying. To flip it into like Todd made it a deadline and now this quarterback competition's going on longer. This is exactly what we thought it would be. When Todd first got here, when this quarterback competition was crystallized after the draft, we all sat here and said they're probably going to announce a starter during joint practice or after joint practice. Now we're at that point and people are bitching about a starter not being announced yet. I don't get it. I really don't get it. He's not handling it right. He lied to us at the beginning. No, he didn't. You just don't listen. That's the issue here. The issue is people don't listen. People did not comprehend more than what they wanted to hear. So now y'all mad when he's told you this from the jump, when everybody knew what the deal was at the jump, that this was likely to go on all the way until camp, all the way until like the 4th or 5th week of it, all the way until a couple of games in the preseason, all the way until joint practice. None of this is a shock. None of this is surprising. None of this was not indicated by Todd Monken. He never said he was gonna have starter wrapped up by then. That was people trying to create an artificial deadline. But the reality is he always said it could go on longer and was open to the idea that it could go on longer. And honestly, if you're paying attention to this situation and you knew anything about both of these quarterbacks, you would know that this was gonna go on longer. But let's continue.
Now that we've gotten into the middle of August and we're a few weeks into training camp on the eve of the first preseason game for a decision not to be made, if the quarterback battle is this close, then why wouldn't the tie go to the younger guy that's in his early 20s as opposed to a player in Deshaun Watson who is essentially on a negative contract and has virtually no future with your franchise?
What if it's not that close? What if Deshaun Watson has looked significantly better in the eyes of Todd Monken than Shedeur Sanders, but he's hoping that Sanders can come around on the stretch because Sanders is 6 years younger. Although, Canty, also, Deshaun Watson is 30. You know, he's not 40. He's still a very young quarterback when you consider how long these guys now can play in the NFL. I understand what the story of Deshaun has been post-2019, but again, he's there. And so if they're...
Also, here's another thing, right? Because again, she's making a good point here about like, because that's exactly what I was thinking when he said this, was like, what if it's not a tie? The other thing is like, hey, if the race isn't over, how is it a tie? Like Chris Canty is talking about this as if it's already been announced it's a tie. But and again, I hate talking about this damn quarterback competition like a horse race. But if the race is not over, if we have not gotten past all of the things that would help him determine a winner, right? And one of those things is, hey, I want each of these guys to start a preseason game, right? If you want to bitch and moan about there not being a starter named after the second preseason game, I think that's fair. Because that seems like the natural endpoint for this competition, the way that Todd Monken has laid it out. But we're not at that point. We don't know if it's a tie. That's the whole reason Deshaun Watson is getting to start. That's the whole reason next week Shedeur Sanders is getting to start. So we can know if this is a tie or if one of them are winning or if one of them are losing. We don't know is the whole thing. That's why we're still here. If we knew who was better than the other, we would just pick one, right? And while I agree with Chris Canty that if we get to the end of this process and you say to yourself, there's not much of a difference between these two quarterbacks, I'm going to go with Shedeur because he's younger and under contract. I'm not going to sit here and kill Todd Monken if he decides that he thinks Deshaun Watson is slightly better and goes with Deshaun Watson because he wants to run his offense with a veteran quarterback for the first few weeks of the season when there's a bunch of moving parts on this team, instead of throwing out a second-year quarterback to handle that. I can't kill a coach for making that decision. It's not what I would want as a fan, but he has a job to do as the head coach that's different than what I want as a fan or what I want as a media person. So acting as if my perspective is the only perspective that could make sense, and that if this coach isn't doing exactly what I would do, they need to be criticized, is ridiculous. Ridiculous. You need to ask yourself the question, is there a way in which what Todd Monken is doing makes sense, even if you don't agree with it? Even if it's not what you would do. But if there's a way it makes sense, then it makes sense. What are we criticizing? That's the part that I think so many people miss. Everybody is so thirsty to throw their criticism out there. And usually a lot of people's criticism online tends to be, this guy did something that I wouldn't do. And it's like, okay, cool. You wouldn't have done that, but like, it doesn't make sense. If there's a way where it can make sense, then fine, right? There are a lot of trades that Andrew Berry has made that I don't think I would want to do. But a lot of them still make sense, even the ones I don't like. So while I'm skeptical about whether these trades are going to be successful for the Browns, I'm not going to sit here and say Andrew Berry needs to be fired just because he made a trade I don't want him to do. Because that would be selfish. That wouldn't be criticism. That would be projection. And what this is just projection. Chris Canty wants them to name Shedeur the starter. And he's upset that it's not being done now. Because maybe he thinks Shedeur needs to get these reps now to have the best chance to play the opening game. I really don't care when they announce the starter. I would prefer after the second preseason game. And then obviously you get to roll in, get about a month work. But I'm going to be real with you. I understand that people are making the argument that reps are so important and they're at a premium. And I get it. But whoever, if they name a starter after the second preseason game, whoever gets the job is going to have like 3 weeks to prepare for the Jacksonville Jaguars. That should be enough time. Like, you should be able to get to where you need to be in those 3 weeks. Like, it's plenty of time to prepare for the Jacksonville Jaguars. No disrespect to them. They were a great team last year. I'm not trying to make fun of them. I'm just saying, like, 3 weeks to prepare for one opponent. We talk about it in the regular season when you get 10 days to prepare for an opponent that you have no excuse. What we going to do when you got 2+ weeks? So, like, I'm not in a rush to name a starter. I don't think we should be in a rush to name a starter. And if we're going to do this stupid quarterback competition, you might as well do it to completion. Not like say, oh, well, they're kind of close right here in this race, so let's just call it. Like, that's stupid. Like, what Chris Canty is suggesting is actually worthy of criticism because that doesn't make sense. But yet Todd is being criticized for doing something that ultimately does make sense. Whether you want Shedeur to start, whether you want Deshaun Watson to start, you probably want your guy to get a full start in the preseason. I think that's only fair. The way that he's doled this out, for the most part, has been one guy gets reps with the ones, the other guy the next day gets reps with the ones. This has been as fair of a quarterback competition layout that I've ever seen. And quite frankly, I think he deserves praise for how he's handled the quarterback competition because this could be a lot messier than it is right now. It was a lot messier last year than it is right now. You know what I mean? Like, I think this quarterback competition was a car crash waiting to happen, and criticizing Todd for not handling it right is like criticizing somebody for surviving a car crash the wrong way. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing? The effects of this, the sensationalism, the national coverage, the scrutiny, the spectacle of this quarterback competition was going to happen no matter who you had running it. It could have been prime Bill Belichick. It would have still been a spectacle. It would have still been something people. You could have named Shedeur Sanders the starter 3 weeks ago, and people would still be talking about this quarterback competition because they'd be like, oh, well, I think Deshaun's going to get in there, or if Shedeur struggles a day in practice. It was going to be a story because people aren't looking for things to make a story about with this quarterback competition. They just make them up. Like, There was a whole article written about the blisters on Shedeur Sanders' hands the other day. You think anybody was avoiding spectacle on this quarterback competition? Like, dog. I don't know. There's things you could be critical of Todd Monken of. This is not one of those things that I'm going to be critical of Todd Monken of. I think this quarterback competition has been handled as well as it could be handled. I'm quite frankly tired of talking about it. This has been a pretty competently ran quarterback competition. It's been a pretty fairly ran quarterback competition. Everything's been extremely equal. And whatever result we get at the end of this is the result that we get at the end of this. And I could care less about people's thoughts about, oh, well, this wasn't fair to my guy or whatever, because it's been fair. We've been able to watch it. This has been a fair competition. He hasn't been bad at this. Maybe the media is bad at covering this. Maybe he's not giving you exactly what you want, but this has been a fair competition. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.